Hey, everybody. Scarlet and Great here with our good friend Dylan Freeman. How are you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing pretty good, staying busy. How about you guys?
I don't know what Johnny's doing. I can't answer for him, but I am stupidly busy, and I just can't find time to do anything these days. It's a little
Who really cares
ridiculous.
what Johnny's doing, to be honest?
Yeah, that's true. Nobody wants to know. Anyway, you know, co-host Corey Thompson here with our good friend Dylan, as I said earlier. Going to do a little early day signing recap with Dylan Freeman, our resident scout. And you might be wondering what the heck that screen is right next to us. That is okay, I apologize again. Normally, what I would do is I would have the videos already pre-made, ready to go. Again, no time to do anything these days. It's crazy. I think I'm actually booked with my job through the end of March. It's a little nutty right now. It's supposed to be the slow time of the year, and well, it's proven to not be the case. But I do want to share my screen with you and share some highlight videos with you because we're going to talk about this class. Obviously, we had 21 commits coming into today, and 21 commits are all signed. Dylan, overall, give a quick, not a summation, but a quick preview of what we're about to talk about.
This class is arguably one of the deepest we've ever had. I mean, outside of the Baron Browning class with all those guys, that, in my opinion, probably the best we've ever had. But this was up there. We pretty much hit every single need that we really focused on. I mean, offensive tackle might be the only thing that we kind of lacked a little bit of, and I don't necessarily blame that on the staff as much as COVID. But I mean, overall, this deep class. I mean, even our lowest commit, there's a good chance that he gets on the field early, and that's kind of a big deal to have supposedly your lowest commit kind of being someone that you can count on early on. I feel like that's definitely the case, and I feel like there's really no weak spots of this class other than the offensive tackle spot.
That's a good thing to hear because thankfully in 2022, the class coming up afterwards, we seem to, you know, be in on quite a few big name offensive tackles, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's going to be, we got a stud has to hit home there on next year because it's not necessarily a make or break type of year for him, but getting these guys, there's a couple of 5 stars we're in on offensive tackle and a couple high 4 stars. Getting a couple of those guys will kind of submit him as someone that we can kind of count on, and they has a little more job security than he does right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously he's done a pretty good job with the offensive line. Wyatt Davis just got offensive lineman of the year for the Big Ten. Josh Myers made, I think, first team All Big Ten. Nicholas Petit-Frere was on the second team, I believe, if I recall correctly. Petit-Frere, I thought should have been probably first team. I thought he's been
third
amazing.
team?
What's that?
Wasn't Petit-Frere third team?
Maybe in third team. I thought it was second team. You could be correct on that. Anyway, I actually thought he deserved to be higher than that, but whatever. I think stud overall the last couple of years has done a pretty good job with Ryan Day. Not perfect. I'm not claiming that, but there's obviously improvements that could be made. But we could also say like our buddy here, Stuart, is in the chat group here, is saying COVID cost us some opportunities here with guys like JC Latham and stuff like that. So it is what it is. You're right, Dylan. Next year he's got to hit on a couple of these guys. Hopefully NPF comes back next year. We can have him and Paris Johnson acting as bookends for us. So anyway, without further ado, we'll go forward. We're going to start with the highest rated commit of our class, which is an Ohioan, Jack Sawyer, the defensive end. Now I'm going to bring up some of his highlights here. You're going to have to put up with me typing, guys. I apologize because again, I don't have the videos ready to go. So but I do want to show you some things here, and probably going to have to put up with some ads too, unfortunately. And that's because that's Huddle for you. But at the same time, Jack Sawyer, the great thing about him is we talked about it this year, Dylan. Obviously, how good this guy is. We need this badly right now because we don't have that pure pass rush defensive end. So, what does Jack Sawyer bring to the table, and will he play right away?
Yes, he'll play right away. He's just a great athlete, and if you look at Zach Harrison might be a better overall athlete, but Zach Harrison was so raw coming out. They call this guy Baby Bosa for a reason. I think Bill Green says he's the third Bosa, and that's very accurate. The Bosas were very technically sound already for high school, and if you watch him, he bends around the corner so well. He's already up to about 260, and so he'll probably play about 265-ish as a freshman, and that's pretty big for a pass rushing end right now. And he's not just a pass rushing end, but I mean, he has no problem being able to set the edge as well, and he's the best defensive end we've had in Ohio in a long time, and he's going to make a difference early on.
So you think he plays right away?
Yeah, kind of like you mentioned, we just don't have that end. We have a lot of good end. I think Tyleik has a chance to be a very good end if he stays healthy, which he has done quite a bit this year. But he's starting to show it. But him and Harrison are good, but Sawyer is higher than they were coming in out of high school, and I feel like he can contribute. I'm not saying necessarily start or anything like that, but I feel like he can kind of get big minutes early on.
Do you think the Bosa's are a good comparison? You called him Baby Bosa. Do you think that's a because
he's hardworking and it's pure grit, and he wants kind of like John Simon. He wanted it more than the other guy across from him, and that's kind of what Sawyer is. Only Sawyer has a little more burst.
There you go. Because we since 2013 we've had a Bosa or a Young, and this year we're seeing the impact of not having that. And well, to be honest with you, we could use another Bosa. So I just want to go ahead and answer this before we move on. Stuart has a question. What are Dylan's thoughts on Rice and the other tackles 2022? Do you have any quick thoughts on that, Dylan?
I think Goodwin is arguably our top offensive tackle target, and we identified him well before anyone else. I mean, he was still 350 pounds when we started talking to him, and he had no offers really. I mean, maybe a few smaller ones, but he's a guy we found that early on we feel like he can blow up, and we found Latham before anyone else as well, and I feel like they're very similar athleticism standpoint. I think Goodwin's going to be a big get for us on the offensive line. Bryce, I like him a lot, and we actually identified him early on, and his mom adores Ohio State. Now, there was a little incident with Stud not returning his calls, but I'm not.
Why? Can you even answer why? Why would he not do that?
No, I mean, at that time he wasn't allowed to contact him on his Stud wasn't allowed to contact Rice first. But there's no really explanation why he wasn't answering his calls other than busy, but that's still not an excuse because that's his job.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have reason on that. But there's a couple offensive tackles that we were in on. We just got a hit on two of them, two big-time offensive tackles.
That works for me. So let's move on to our next 5-star. He's a wide receiver, committed very recently out of Washington, Emeka Egbuka. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I'm sorry. If it's not Jim Smith, I struggle with it. That's just my fault. Dylan, I remember you and I were talking privately, and I actually said, I want the kid, clearly. Great player, obviously. But to me, it wasn't a huge need as far as wide receivers are concerned, even though you always want playmakers. But, I'd always take them, obviously. But you said to me, Corey, this guy might be Garrett Wilson 2.0. What do you mean by that?
He's outside of next year on our roster, wide receiver standpoint, he's besides Wilson, he's our most talented wide receiver. He's physically ready, and Fleming's a freak athlete, but he never played wide receiver. I mean, he was out wide, but they ran wishbone offense and kind of handed off every play, and he was blocking and running really easy routes. I mean, not really much to it. So he didn't have the technical aspects, and he wasn't a technician. And Egbuka has the athleticism, and he knows, and he is great. So he's a great athlete, and he knows how to run all the route tree. He comes from a program out in Washington with a 7-on-7 that's very popular, and they're getting some big names out there. And so he's going against the best, and he's showing that he's the best.
So obviously, you think he's a guy. He's talked about, I'm going to start from day one or whatever. I don't think I mean, they all say that, but I mean, look, I don't care how talented you are. It's pretty hard to do. Do you think he at least gets in the rotation and plays like he's in that top 6?
Yes, I do. He'll be right around 6, and he'll steal some minutes from the freshman this year that came in that we have high hopes for. I'm not sure who's going to steal minutes from, but I feel like he'll get the reps. And
oh, wow. I just took a 2015 highlight. That was a genius move, Corey. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I feel like he's just too talented to keep off the field.
I mean, do you see him as like a returner or anything like that, or do you think? I mean, he's just like you said, he's an overall athlete, right?
Yeah. Crazy thing is, one of my buddies who's a scout in the NFL right now, I was just because he doesn't really follow. I mean, he likes Ohio State, but doesn't follow recruiting or anything like that. And I just sent him Egbuka the day he committed, just kind of wanted his thoughts as well. And he's like, "This kid's gonna play in the NFL as a defensive back." I mean, that's how highly he's thought of. He had no clue what position he was, because it says athlete on there, and he thought this guy could play in the NFL as a defensive back. So it just shows that he's that talented that he feels that. I mean, obviously college coaches I think wide receiver, and my buddy told me that safety or cornerback. And so that just shows you kind of what playmaker you're getting, that he could do it at the highest level on both sides of the ball.
Good Lord. So I guess I was wrong. I was not thinking he was a need. Because I mean, honestly, the way I needed corner, you almost kind of wish that Coombs could kind of convince, maybe Brian Hartline, but I guess more people would want to see him, with the ball in his hands.
He's not really a true corner, you know what I mean? He's kind of a corner safety. He's not a quick necessarily like you'd think of some corners, but he's going to be a playmaker. But like you said, he's not necessarily a need, but if you can get the best wide receiver in the country, you can take him and figure out that later.
2 years in a row, and then some bum in 2018 was the number 2 receiver in the country. I don't know whatever happened to him. He's just kind of, just terrible. But anyway, our next 5-star offensive lineman, Donovan Jackson. You've been extremely high on him for quite a while, Dylan.
Yeah, actually, I saw him in camp in Houston. I think it was his freshman or sophomore year, and he's just bully. Like he's a road grader. You think of the true definition. He always plays. He's a very nice kid. Everyone talks so highly of him. If you see him, he wants to pancake you every single play. He's kind of like, remember how you watched Paris Johnson last year with all the pancakes and knocking those guys down and getting up aggressive? He's just like that. He kind of like that player right there. He just wants to finish you, and he's going to make sure that he gets good leverage. That's the one thing that I'm really impressed with, is leverage. He stays very low for being 6'4"-ish on the inside.
Do you think he's a tackle or a guard?
I think he's good enough, to be honest, to play any position on the offensive line. I think that he might be best suited for guard, but if they asked him to play right tackle, I don't think he would have any problem with it. And you can see in high school he played some left tackle too, and that just shows. I mean, he's a great athlete, and his wingspan is incredible. That's the knock on him, is he's short, but I mean, that's what all the rivals and 247 guys say. But being short, he's not really short. You know what I mean? He's 6'4", and he has probably a longer wingspan than most of the 6'6" guys. So
did I just see a play where he's out wide? Holy smokes.
Yeah, if you watch him, he pulls very well too, and come through on power plays and stuff like that, which is pretty big. That's why it's pretty impressive to see that he can do that at his size on the interior.
Okay, so obviously a position of need. A guy who kind of got forgotten when we lost J.C. Latham and things like that, because it's always a shiny new toy. And when Jackson's so solid at Ohio State, you kind of forget about it. But guys, you're getting a really good one here. Again, Dylan's been telling me about this guy before he was even committed, and I have to give Dylan is one of those guys. I tell you guys, if you ever at Dylan Freeman VP, check him out, because he's always in. Like Court Williams is a great example. I remember Dylan when Court Williams, nobody knew who the heck he was, and you were coming to me, watch this kid Court, and he's going to be a Buckeye. And you were right on about that, obviously. And Donovan Jackson, of course, you were another guy you said. Now, granted, he was more well known nationally, but you were telling me early on this guy is going to be a Buckeye, and he's awesome. So kudos to you on that, Dylan. You're right again on that one, and again another big pickup because we need him. This is probably the most exciting 5-star for Ohio State fans, wouldn't you say, Trevion Henderson? Yeah,
I was kind of bummed that he didn't get to play his senior year, and we kind of see that improvement he made from his sophomore to junior to senior season, which I was really hoping for, because you can see him. He posts stuff on Twitter all the time, kind of showing his workouts and stuff like that, and his footwork is incredible. And I was kind of bummed that we didn't get to see the opportunity to see how it translated this year.
What's his biggest feature, do you think, a guy like him? Because a lot of people expect him to come in and make an impact almost immediately.
One of the things that stands out is his jump cut. He doesn't – a lot of times kids slow down. That's one of the great things about Jacob Dobbins. You know how he hit the hole and made the guy miss right in the hole, and he was full speed already? Like, he didn't have to downshift pretty much. That's the one thing about Trevion. He stays at top-end speed the whole time, no matter what move he's making, and he's very good at setting up the defenders. That's one of the big things about him.
Yeah, you can see him here. This is what I love about him. It's just like, yeah, goodbye. Sorry. It's funny because
he's not playing the best competition, which is kind of, it's tough to tell sometimes, you know what I mean? But if you see someone like that doing that over and over and again, it's pretty impressive, and you know that it'll translate over. Like,
there's that jump cut you were talking about. Yeah, Dylan, I talked to Johnny. Said the same thing when he committed. By the way, Johnny, I'm going to relentlessly mock you if you're watching, because you said he was going to end up at Alabama. But I said the same thing, John. He was clocked at 22 mile an hour. I don't really care what your competition is. Nobody's catching you at 22 mile an hour.
And he's actually surprisingly pretty tough running up the middle. Which I mean, he's not a huge guy, you know what I mean? But he's what, 200 pounds, right around there. And so he's big enough to run between tackles. But when you see someone that's breaking away all those home run hits and stuff like that, you think that he's just outside the tackle and kind of jet sweeps and kind of zone
speed.
Yeah, and you think of that, but he's actually, if you look at him, he runs a lot of ISO plays and just dives pretty much right up the middle, and that's pretty effective for him. And he's strong enough and has great enough vision.
Look at that play where he just found his way in traffic. He has incredible vision to be able to see the hole in that just pile of just garbage there. And yeah, I noticed that too.
You see him set up his defender right there.
Oh yeah. And the thing is like, I agree with what you're saying too. A lot of it is just ISO up the middle. It's like, here, just make it happen, buddy. And he's doing it every time, it seems. And I think he averaged something like 13 yards per touch on the football in his junior year. Which is absurd. He had 59 touchdowns, I think. I mean, I don't care what your competition is. Ezekiel Elliott didn't have great competition. I think he turned out okay.
He squares up his shoulder to the line really well, really fast, which is, I mean, it's a big thing to be able to kind of see the whole field, you know what I mean, and not have to bend back. And that's one of the things, he squares up his shoulder really well early on.
Yeah, it's just, say a couple words, man, about Tony Alford completely redeeming himself as a recruiter. I mean, not that he needed to, I don't think. I mean, but people were actually, questioning him for quite a while. And he pulls this guy. I remember when they talked about, they were talking about Terry Van Henderson possibly going to Ohio State. I really just didn't believe it. It's just like, okay, yeah, right. But, but Tony pulled it off, man.
He did. That's probably his most impressive haul, probably ever on the trail. Even at Notre Dame, he pulled off some big names at Notre Dame. Some pretty impressive ones, especially he had a running back, I can't think of his name, but he pulled one from California late in signing day. And that's pretty impressive. But this Travion came out of nowhere, like on the recruiting scene. I mean, he had a Clemson offer for defensive back, but no one was really recruiting him that hard for running back. And I'm not saying we were first or anything like that, but we identified him and kind of got on him before he started really blowing up onto the scene.
Yeah, imagine like seeing that guy run and be like, nah, I think I'm safety. But you know what? Same exact thing. Ezekiel Elliott, Notre Dame and Alabama just wanted him as a safety.
Yeah, and that's had him practice that way for the first 2 days at the All-American game.
God, and his own mom, Zeke Elliott's mom, was on Twitter saying, yeah, these schools tried to take him as a safety, and I just mind blown by that. Like, guys, I don't know, but this is Ohio State's last 5-star, but a crown jewel nonetheless, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Kyle McCord. You have told me he reminds you of Dwayne Haskins. How does he remind you of Dwayne Haskins?
He reads the field so well, especially so early on in his career. If you watch him, he knows where he throws the guy open. That's the biggest thing that's tough to do in high school. And if you watch that, right there, he saw the safety, the cornerback sitting outside with outside leverage, and he threw his wide receiver inside on that route because that's a streak route right there, or fly, whatever you want to call it. And so he saw that, and he threw his receiver open, and that's one of the big things early on. And Haskins is a capable runner. He's not gonna hurt you, but if you watch him, Calvin McCord can move around in the pocket, and he's scrambling to throw the ball, which Haskins did very well. And great thing is, he has a big arm. He probably has the biggest arm in the class. He fits every single throw in there. Like Haskins, if you watch his high school highlights, it's 20-yard routes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You never see that in high school highlights. It's always either a 75-yard deep pass, touchdown, or a little bubble screen that happened to blow up because of bad tackling, which most high schools do. But if you watch McCord's, most of his throws are 15 to 20-yard routes, outbreaking routes, slants, over the middle, posts, and stuff like that. And he stood in there right there on that and delivered a strike to his wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. I was excited to have him. So real quick, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the fact that they took him over J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. was pretty salty about it. What do you like about him versus J.J. McCarthy?
How physically developed he is. He's a big, strong kid. McCarthy's going to have to get in the weight room. I mean, I'm not saying he can't play early on, for Michigan, because he is very talented, but McCord's ready. He can take the hits. He's not going to be lacked by having defenders run at him and hit him because he's a big, strong kid and he's ready to handle that. And arm strength is a big thing.
So you think his arm strength better?
Yeah.
That's the thing, because I've always watched JJ McCarthy and thought, you know what, the guy's got pretty good arm strength. I think
He does. He has a. We were talking about this, I think, on Ewers when I was on here last time. Being able to throw the ball a deep route, is a lot different than being able to throw a 20-yard out route from opposite hash. You know what I mean? That's a different type of arm strength. And I think McCarthy does have a big arm, so I'm not gonna bash because I think he's a very good player and he has a big arm. But I think McCord, he understands the game much better, and I think that might help with my idea necessarily of bigger arm.
Fair enough. I'm struggling to find Jalen Johnson for whatever reason.
Try JK.
Try JK Johnson. Jeez, come on, J. Is that going to come up? Not seeing him. Man, maybe he doesn't have a huddle. Oh well. Watch more Kyle McCord on that one. We'll talk about Jalen Johnson a little bit because obviously our top number 3 corner in the country. We needed a couple more than one to make up for the 2018 class, which had 0 corners. Tell us what are his strengths and weaknesses as a corner? Do you think he could play right away?
He's a pretty small kid, skinny. About 6 foot, 6'1", and about 175 pounds ish. So I mean, he's a really thin kid. I will say, for being that thin, he's a very aggressive player, and I am really impressed with that. He has no problem sticking his nose in there, and he's a long speed. You know what I mean? He's not necessarily the quickest, but he is quick, but he's not the quickest. But he's very fast, and I think I kind of see a little bit of Denzel Ward in him. Just that, not the biggest kid or strongest kid, you know what I mean, but good length. Also, he's a track star, and he
really, but he's got great speed.
Mm-hmm.
That's because I mean, I'm kind of curious sometimes. I feel like sometimes we get corners that are like kind of 4'6" guys.
Yeah, well, cornerback's a position where you don't have to be necessarily the fastest. Obviously, it helps, being able to run like that. But I see his aggressiveness almost kind of. Some people are not going to like this, but kind of Marcus Peters like, where he might.
Is that bad? Is he not good?
No. It's just he gets burned, and he's going to make mistakes. But he's a very aggressive. He's a playmaker. He's very aggressive, and he makes mistakes, and he's going to get burnt on some double moves and things like that. But he'll make up for it on great coverage, and he'll make some plays, get some picks for us.
All right. Well, okay then. So you think he plays right away?
I think he'll play a little bit right away.
A little bit.
He's not going to start unless something happens. But I think he'll play. He'll get some reps, especially in next year when we have a full season. Hopefully, in some blowout games.
Everybody's getting to witness me spelling names wrong. Anyway. All right. Well, I was actually really excited about Jalen Johnson for myself. Moving on to the next 4-star, Mike Hall. This is a guy I'm really excited about too. Defensive tackle started off really low, 4-star ranking, 90 or so, and he shot up the charts. And I remember so many people were asking, why did we get Mike Hall? This guy is like a low 4-star from Ohio. But then you watch his film and you think, I can't find it on Huddle for whatever reason. Don't care. You just trust us on this. Then you find it on. Then you see his tape on. You go to YouTube and find his highlights. He's just a monster in the middle. He's extremely hard to deal with. And I remember, again, another guy you told me about that. Anyway, what is your impression of Mike Hall as a player?
He has a rare, unique ability for not necessarily only strength, but explosiveness for a guy his size. It's not very. I mean, he's kind of like a bigger BB Landers.
Gotcha.
He has that ability to shoot the gaps very quick. And I mean, he's going to play at 300 pounds right around there, in college. So he's a pretty big boy, and he shoots the gaps very well. He understands the game. That's the one. He does get out of positions because he is aggressive, shooting those gaps, which Landers does. I mean, it opens up some holes for the running backs to get through there, because he just gets taken out of the play sometimes. But he's just a freak athlete for his size. Not necessarily maybe testing numbers or anything like that, but just he knows the game well, and he's relentless as well. Kind of like Sawyer, that they just want to beat their man across from them. And
I actually see this guy starting by year 2, year 3, and being a disruptive force. I don't know why. I just see him as a disruptive force. There's very few that I see defensive tackles on highlight film that I'm like, well, he looks pretty good. He looks, but this guy's just so, his hands are ridiculous, and he's so quick. Like, I think a good comparison, like you said, is a big BB Landers. And but I think this is guy. I mean, I hate to say about BB Landers, he's not going to be an NFL player, but I think this guy actually could be an NFL player.
Yeah, he has
by the time it's all. I mean, especially the way you see Larry Johnson's developing people, and I mean, look at the guys that are what they're doing in the NFL, and look what the guys are doing now. Look at Haskell Garrett, who's another guy we thought was going to be kind of an afterthought, and now he's a monster. He's going to make money in the NFL. Devon Hamilton, another guy. Dermont Jones, another guy. I mean, it's like this is my call. Looks like a kind of guy that Larry Johnson could mold into a superstar Big Ten player.
Yeah, he has all the tools, physical, raw strength, and raw ability. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to take him. I mean, you see how much difference the players make when they get from year 1 to year 2 in Larry Johnson. And so I think that I'm not even sure especially if we have some of the players coming back next year, like Tommy and Haskell and Vincent. I'm not sure necessarily.
Well, Haskell's a senior. I don't think he's coming back, but
we had the free year though.
He has. I mean, will he? Even with the free year, will he? I mean, he's making money right now.
Yeah, but hey, if he could start again, if he could start next year and get a whole year of offseason development, you know what I mean? Because
maybe. I
think that I'm not saying he will or anything like that, but I think there's a chance that he does come back, and if that does happen, I
wouldn't be opposed to it.
I'm not sure that there's any reason to play him much next year. I mean, maybe redshirt, but I think, like you mentioned, kind of year 2 or 3, like redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore year, I think that there's a very good chance I see him start, and he has the ability.
All right, let's go to our next wide receiver, 4-star guy, JAYDEN Ballard out of Ohio. I'm going to put him up here because I actually found his. Thank you, JAYDEN, for being so accessible. Now, we took him early on, and I think that shocked a few people because, we're always in on so many great receivers. And if Brian Hartline, who now has that reputation that he can take any receiver he wants in the country almost, if he takes you early on, you have to be something special. Wouldn't you? So would you say JAYDEN Ballard's pretty special?
I think he has the ability to be special. If you think of Devin Smith, the ability to track the ball deep, that's his biggest asset. He's a very straight line fast, kind of like Devin Smith was as well.
A little bit bigger than Devin, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches bigger, and about 20 pounds bigger coming out.
Oh, look, it's wide open in the middle there.
Yeah, well, if you look at it, he's a very fast guy. He's a long strider. He doesn't necessarily look like he's running that fast, but next thing you know, he's on top of you, And kind of like right there, that DB thinks he had him. And he tracks the ball so well. That deep ball, I mean, we saw that in the key stretch for our national championship run, just the ability to track the ball deep, especially against the really good teams. You need that guy that can make plays one-on-one even when they're covered, because the other guy across from you, he's probably just as good, if not better than you most of the time, in the playoffs. And so that's kind of why you need a guy that can just beat you one-on-one even when you're covered. Just go up and get the ball, 50-50 ball. And that's kind of what's so special about JAYDEN Ballard is he has that knack to be able to – he knows where the ball is at all times.
So that's the primary reason because do you think his route running – I mean, is he going to take time to develop his route running and other tools he needs to be a great receiver?
Yeah, I do. I think he's not the quickest wide receiver, and so he's going to have to – they're kind of have to early on tailor the kind of like when he gets in there, have him run routes that are fairly simple. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Jamison Williams did early last year. You know what I mean? He wasn't that polished. Not that he's not a good route runner. Obviously he is because he played Ohio State. But you gotta see. I mean, that's a simple route. He's not really running the whole route tree. It's either hitches or goes early on.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. Okay, well. I mean, so Hartline obviously got him because he wants that deep ball acumen from him, and I get that. And but the good news is it shows that Ryan Day definitely wants to go deep, and here I am hitting buttons. So okay, well, we got to feel good about JAYDEN Ballard. Then I would say,
yeah, he's a really good player. And I think he can play next year. So don't get me wrong about that. I think he can play. I think
really right away.
Yeah, I'm not saying start, but I'm saying that I think he can, especially like I mentioned, the blowout games. I think there's a chance that you could put him out there.
All right. I mean, we're not even seeing G. Scott very often, so to see this guy must be something. I mean, must be doing something right.
We also only had 5 games so far this year.
That's a good point.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, if we would have gotten these blowouts, Garrett Wilson and Olave aren't playing half a game.
You got a point there.
Knowing the short season, Justin Fields probably wasn't going to be able to play as much as he did late in the third quarter and fourth quarter, like against some of these teams. If we knew that we were going to
Fair point.
more games, and I think that you can just get him if he's top 7, 8 guys, wide receivers. And I feel like, especially early on, early in the blowouts, that we can get him in there.
Well, let's go to our next corner, next big time corner. The two pillars of the corner class obviously are Jalen Johnson, whom we talked about, and now this guy from Georgia, Jordan Hancock, who we flipped from Clemson. I just want to make sure I brought that up. So, what was first of all what was so special about getting him from Clemson? Because he committed to Clemson, didn't we kind of think it was over? Except for Birmingham, I'll give him credit. Birmingham didn't think it was over, but they haven't flipped anybody from Clemson in like 7 years or something like that. Nobody has. And then all of a sudden, Hancock's a Buckeye. What happened there?
It was the big part of it was he wanted to be a Buckeye the whole time, like especially early on. And I mean, he grew up a Buckeye fan. And I mean, he has Buckeye covers and game controller and stuff like that. So he was talking about that all on Instagram, and they showed his room and stuff like that. And he's a huge Buckeye fan, and that kind of played into the fact that we can flip him.
He can clock. He reminds me a little of Kuda there, clocking guys on the screen pass there. But
like one thing you can see about Kerry Coombs is he likes those long, rangy DBs, whether it's safety, cornerback, kind of a hybrid. You know what I mean? He's a playmaker, and that's kind of one of the special things about Hancock is he's a great player, technique wise already. He does get beat a few times with his head in the backfield, watching the quarterback sometimes, but you can't teach that right there. You know what I mean? Coming across 4 yards beat and just closing the gap that fast, you can't teach that.
So is he a guy that's going to play early? We talked about Jalen Johnson, but I mean, Hancock would be the guy you think would get on the field early. So you think
I think he's more game ready than Jacob Johnson.
How dare you, sir?
That's just special. He took the ball out of the wide receiver's hands, and he's playing good competition in Georgia too.
That's true.
You're not worrying about the competition standpoint, and he's just a solid player. And I feel like, I mean, he's the next first rounder in my opinion.
First rounder, you're already putting him there.
Yeah, he has that ability and playmaking ability. And he was our number 1 cornerback before anyone even knew about him. You know what I mean? Like It wasn't like we saw him at a couple camps and we decided that, okay, we like this guy, and a couple guys said no, so we moved up the board. We wanted him much more than Trayvon Grimes.
More than Trayvon? Okay. I'll trust you on that one. You mean Tony Grimes, right?
Yes, Tony Grimes. We wanted him much more than Tony Grimes, and obviously we would have taken Grimes because we liked him, and he's a good player, and you see what he's doing at UNC. But Hancock was our number 1 guy pretty much from the get-go. Okay,
see, I was about to say Trayvon Grimes. I don't know why we'd want the receiver since he left, but no, I'm kidding. Anyway, Evan Pryor, the next running back that completes the running back class for Tony Alford, who just put on a show in recruiting this past year. Now we talk about Trevion Henderson. He's the guy everybody's excited about. The speed factor, jump cut. What does Evan Pryor do that maybe Trevion Henderson can't do?
I don't think there's necessarily anything he can't do. He's more versatile running back. He's one of the best all-purpose backs in the country, probably the best. And Trayvon Henderson, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But if you watch him in some of the camp highlights that they show and stuff like that, he kind of fights the ball a little bit on his routes, and he's working on that. You can tell. But Pryor, he's just a smooth athlete. He can put him line up at wide. He can run routes. He can run pretty much the whole route tree. He's an explosive athlete. If you watch him, I'm not sure he's as good at running between the tackles yet as Henderson, but he's kind of more versatile at this stage in his career.
I see Johnny's joined us. Pryor do something Henderson can't? ? Yeah. Well, yes, Johnny. I had to ask the question in case he adds something Henderson can't do. Maybe then Dylan kind of answered. Maybe he's more polished as a receiver at that moment.
One of the things is they did talk to both the running backs that they can definitely see them on the field together. Lining up Pryor out wide, running some stuff for him. You know what I mean? Some jet sweeps, some handoffs. That's a new rage right now, bringing the guy in motion and fake handing it off to him, and you know what I mean. And we definitely talked to both the running backs about being able to see them on the field together.
Johnny's sitting there talking trash about Pryor when Johnny thought that Henderson was going to leave us and sign with Alabama.
Didn't Johnny say that he didn't think that Henderson was that good?
Yeah, he said he was actually pretty bad. He said he was pretty slow on film. So I don't know what Johnny's looking at. But Johnny's allowed his opinion. It's okay.
Like, if you watch that, he just ran 3 routes in a row right there, pretty much.
Well, that's okay. And then we complete. So is this the best running back Ohio State has had as far as like a group or 2 guys, or is there?
I think it is. It's very versatile and kind of diverse group, and they both bring something different to the table. They can both do everything. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're each person is one-dimensional, but they can kind of do it all. And so like that's a good thing. You don't really have to change up like if you watch it right now, sometimes we have to change up our running scheme a little bit to kind of tailor who's the running back. I mean, last year T can't run the same way that Dobbins could, and
that's late breaking news right there.
You know what I mean? So like and we some people in the playoff game got a little frustrated that we were trying to run the same plays and same blocking scheme and plays like that over and over to Teague when Dobbins got hurt. And that's a good thing about having these 2 guys is while they are a little different, they can still do the same thing. So you won't have to really shade out that much. All
right, let's move on to a guy who played a little running back, but we're recruiting him as a middle linebacker, or at least a linebacker. I don't know if he'll end up being a middle linebacker. He's 6'3", 225, big guy, like a Pete Werner type. Reed Carrico. I'll be honest with you, I don't know how to say his last name because I'm terrible with names. Dylan, what do you know? I watched one film on this guy that a coach broke him down, and he's like an old school linebacker. He'll just crush you. Yeah, that was the biggest feature that this gentleman had about him.
He's a ball. That's one thing. It's you watch him. He has a nose for the ball. He always knows what the play is going. Even before like you get the tells and stuff like that. He was already sprinting out there. You know what I mean? Out wide, to chase down running back before the running back even broke the tackle box. So that's one of the things about him is he knows what the play is. He's smart, and he's a pretty good athlete. So like a lot of people don't think. I mean, he's not necessarily the quickest linebacker and in space, but he's fast and he's long and rangy, kind of like Warner. You know what I mean? Warner's not like the quickest, but he's a good athlete. And as much crap as Warner used to get, people are seeing that he's a great athlete now. And that's kind of like, I'm not saying he's the same level of athlete as Warner, but he's a little more physical and he's going to be a bigger linebacker and kind of more of a thumper than Warner is.
Do you see him as a hawk or Laurinaitis, as Johnny's bringing up?
Yeah, I see him kind of more like Laurinaitis. I think Laurinaitis was a little better in space than Hawk was.
Could he be more physical than Laurinaitis? I always felt like Laurinaitis wasn't quite as physical as I'd like. That maybe I'm crazy, but I always felt like he was a sure tackler, but not a guy who'd pop you that hard.
Yeah, Carrico can do it. He can pop you, and he has no problem. He's I do see him maybe a little more physical, and then yeah, I can see that.
But he's definitely probably destined to be a starter for Ohio State, you'd say.
Yeah, they really like Eichenberg a lot at middle linebacker, but I think this guy's upside is much higher than Eichenberg, so I can definitely see him taking over the middle linebacker spot soon.
Well, there you go. Remember when we were battling for him with Clemson?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're battling with Clemson for somebody, you're doing pretty good. Do you think Clemson was that serious about him?
Oh yeah, he was their number 1 middle linebacker. What's the guy's name from Clemson? Trotter?
Yeah, Trotter. Yeah,
we had Trotter wanted to come to Ohio State as well. And Carrico was our guy. We weren't going to let him leave home. And so what's Trotter, the number 1 linebacker right now, right in, I think?
I'm not sure. I know we took a quick look at him because he's teammates with Kyle McCord and that's the next guy we're going to talk about. But as soon as Trotter, I think Trotter committed just before Carrico committed to Ohio State. Am I correct?
We knew that we had Carrico locked up, and he was our guy. So
Okay.
I mean, both of them wanted. I mean, we picked Carrico out of those two. So I think you guys can feel pretty good about that.
Okay, then. Do you think we only picked him because we didn't have a great shot at Trotter, or because Carrico is an Ohio guy and we said we need to keep the Ohio guys home?
We could have, if we would have pushed hard for Trotter, we would have got Trotter. So we wanted Carrico, and we feel like they're very similar, like ability wise,
Mm-hmm.
but keeping them home is just another bonus, another big reason.
All right. Let's move on to our third wide receiver in the class, Marvin Harrison Jr. This guy started out really high ranking. I think he dropped a little bit, and I think he was one of the guys that, because of his namesake, most fans were excited about. Obviously, his Hall of Fame father, Marvin Harrison, and but what is this guy? I think this. If maybe I'm wrong, Dylan, you could point me in the right direction. This guy to me seems like he's almost an elite route runner already.
G. Scott, I think like that ability to run routes. You know what I mean? He understands the game so well. Especially, I mean, you could see him if you go back all the way to his sophomore highlights, you could see that he was beating the senior defensive backs on the field. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
the guy, they play good teams, so it's not like he's going against nobodies. You know what I mean? They play all.
They blow right by that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's an elite route runner already, and he's a technician for every aspect, and he understands the game. That's kind of the biggest thing is you can't really teach someone to know the game. You know what I mean? Like you can teach them the routes and things like that and how to run it better, but you can't teach them to have a feel for where the quarterback's looking, what the DB is thinking. You just can't you can't teach that right there. That's kind of what, if you go back and watch G. Scott, he ran the same type of routes early on.
Yeah, he looks like that route there is that's sick. That's not even fair.
He does this for like what 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah,
those double moves.
Yeah, he's got the double move down. Oh, yeah, that was a nice route there as well.
He has great hands.
Oh, absolutely. So he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's tall, lanky, got great hands, runs great routes. Obviously has a Hall of Fame father to learn from, and for his father to trust Brian Hartline with his development, it's got to say volumes. Obviously,
and another thing that's actually impressive is if you watch a lot of the highlights from him. They throw a lot of bubble screens and stuff like that to him. You know what I mean? A lot of times you use a bigger receiver as a blocker in those situations, and he's a very good blocker. But a lot of times they throw him as blockers on those little bubble screens, jailbreaks.
There you go, right there.
Yeah, they use him a lot on those. They like to get the ball out in his hands. And while he's fast enough to beat you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a 4.6 guy, but he'll make you pay a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Also, so that's obviously a good pickup for Ohio State. We're going to move on here till I find him here. Ben Chrisman, offensive lineman out of Ohio. This guy, another guy who started out with a higher ranking, I think, and then it just kind of went down a little bit. What causes these things sometimes?
Well, if you look at him from when we first started recruiting him, he was already 6'5"-ish, 300 pounds, 295, 300 pounds. You know what I mean? So he was already the biggest kid on the field every single week. And with that happens, those kids, I mean, there's not much room to grow. You know what I mean? Once you get 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds already as a junior, early on in junior career, you don't really have anywhere to go besides staying the same. I mean, some kids get a little bit bigger, but you're kind of maxed out size-wise when you're that big. And so it's hard to necessarily look like he's getting better, if that makes sense.
That actually, unfortunately, does make sense. I mean, so what do you think? Is he a guard at the next level, or?
Yeah, I think I see him as inside. I think he's a guard. I don't think he has great length and reach, but I just don't really see the quickness in him. I think he could be a very, very good guard for us, but I just don't see the.
I see what you're talking about here. As I see him in the open field, I'm like, yeah, probably a guard.
Yeah, I just don't think that he has an athletic ability to play out in space.
So what's his major strength? He looks like a guy who'll finish the block.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I don't think he's as good as Donovan Jackson at that, because I think Donovan Jackson.
I don't know if anybody's as good as Donovan Jackson.
Yeah. But
does he want to open a bookstore?
He does it all well.
All around, just solid player.
Solid player. I mean, I don't really think necessarily there's like a dominant feature. I mean, he's a very strong kid. I do think that was a bad example of what we were going to talk about, but I think he plays a little high sometimes and loses his leverage. being 6'5", you know what I mean? Especially on the interior, you have to really work on bending and kind of your flexibility. But I think that's kind of one of the areas that he has to improve on. But I think that all around he's a solid player, and he kind of does everything well enough to be a solid contributor for us.
So do you see him starting ever? Or?
Yeah, I think junior year, I can see him starting.
Okay, well, that's not bad. I'll take that. It's kind of like a Ryan Jacoby type. This is another guy who kind of surprised me when we took him. Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle, big guy. I think, what was he, 330 pounds? Yeah, 6'4", 325 pounds. Why did we take this kid? We were in on so many other defensive tackles, still in on one of them as we go forward. But why this guy? Just because we needed a nose tackle, or?
So we really wanted Malone, and we felt like he was a difference maker at the one technique, right? And that's nose tackle. And we really felt like he was a difference maker, and we really liked him. And we learned pretty early on, before it even got out to the public, that we didn't really have a chance with him, because he was going to play baseball somewhere, you know. And Tyleik, he's a pure one technique. He's going to be able to play nose tackle the whole time, and we know what he is. You know what I mean? He's a big, strong kid. And I think that's kind of the only reason is, if you look at it recently, we've been taking a lot of 285 pounders, you know what I mean? Which it's tough for them to, obviously they can put on 25, 35 pounds, you know what I mean? Which a lot of times they do, but it's much easier when they're 300 pounds already to get that right around there playing our bodies almost already used to what they're going to be playing weight. So being able to have them stay like that, and the kid that we already know what he is,
looks like he moves pretty well for 330.
Yeah, if you watch him, he's a good athlete. So he's a good athlete for 330 pounds.
So do you see Devon Hamilton with him?
Hamilton's a little longer than him, and I know they're probably close to the same listed height. You know what I mean? But I'm not sure this guy's really 6'4". I think he's closer to 6'2"-ish, 6'3", and he's more of a bowling ball than Hamilton was.
Gotcha. Hamilton was like this from his freshman year on. Freshman year they were saying he's an immovable object. So I guess kind of the hope is this guy can kind of be that.
Yeah, they want to have a guy lock down the one technique and eat up the blockers, and because we're surrounding him with so many other talented playmakers, you need a guy that's not going to be too mad about eating up the double teams all the time, you know what I mean? And
not getting the stats,
yeah. And I feel like that's kind of who he is, and it doesn't hurt that his teammate is Sean Murphy next year.
Oh, yeah.
And one of his best friends. So that's another win-win.
You go.
You take a guy that you really like a lot and have him work on Murphy.
Well, let's get back into defensive backs. Andre Turrentine, a guy out of Tennessee that we like a lot. Do you see him as a safety?
Yeah, I do.
You sound disappointed, like, yeah, fine.
No, it's more of I think he can play that slot corner role that Williamson's playing right now. You see Proctor playing it as well, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, that's one thing with Kerry Coombs that I want to kind of bring up is his schemes are a lot different than, they're running very similar coverages, but he wants more versatility than Halfley did, Coombs does. Mm-hmm. And he wants to be able to have the cornerback drop out and play safety roles, you know what I mean? And safety come down and play that flat. So, they want a lot of versatility, and that's what Turrentine does. If you watch him, he's a football player. And I'm not saying he's going to be like the Honey Badger, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we want football players, yeah.
Yeah, you had that. He's not going to test out the charts or anything like that. He's not going to be like, oh my God, this kid's like the best DB in the country, you know what I mean? But he makes plays, and he knows the game, and he works really hard, and he's just kind of guy that he's a football player. You strap it up and you know what you're going to get from him. And he's going to give his all, and you can blitz him, drop him in coverage. You can play some man. And so he's a very versatile athlete. And that's kind of the key to the defensive backs this year.
Yeah. Well, we got to rebuild that defensive back room, obviously. And that's what they were doing with this class, it seems like, as we move on to another one from Arizona, Denzel Burke. This one I don't know anything about, Dylan, and not that I know everything about every one of them or anything like that. But this one kind of shocked me a little bit. I was like, "Is this guy good?" He's obviously got some size at 6'1", 185. As you said before, he likes those tall, rangy corners. Coombs does. And so, what is special about this guy? Why do we take him?
I see him as kind of Gary Conley type player.
Playing receiver first play, for crying out loud.
Yeah. He just started playing. I think last year was his first year ever playing safety slash cornerback. And so that's one thing. He's just really learning how to be a defensive back. And he's played wide receiver his whole life, and he was getting offers as a wide receiver. He's just an athlete, you know what I mean? And he's long.
Fast.
He's fast. He's probably right in that 4.6 range, 4.5, high 4.5s as well. And so that's plenty fast enough to be a college DB, you know what I mean? And he's long and rangy, and that's another theme. Like I mentioned that over and over again. That's the theme of this class. We want guys that can do it all. He can play cornerback. He can play safety, and they're going to try him out at cornerback first. And I feel like he can play there.
Is this another guy? I mean, we took a lot of corners this year. I think 6, or at least defensive backs. Period. Is this another guy? Are we just kind of like throwing out a wide casting out a wide net, and just kind of trying to take as many bodies as we can to see who pans out, or do we really feel special about some of these guys?
I talked to a couple of my buddies in the program that they know who's being the top on the board and stuff like that, and we had about 4 or 5 other cornerback / safeties that were looking to try getting on board, you know what I mean, with Ohio State. And this is at the point where we told Jalen Davies, who I think is a pretty darn good cornerback as well. We told him no, and we told him that we weren't going to take anyone until he visited. And lo and behold, we took this kid without the visit. I mean, I think that kind of tells you that we want bodies, obviously, but I don't think we were just going to take bodies, especially when we had so many high guys we had probably 3 or 4, like I mentioned, 3 or 4 other 4-stars that were trying to jump on board.
Well, I mean, if Coombs and the defensive staff like him, I'm going to have to just agree with him, because Coombs obviously knows what a good corner looks like. Another corner we took as a big guy, safety. Is this guy a safety or corner? He reminds me of Malcolm Jenkins, if I'm being honest. Johnson Dunn from Bowling Green, Kentucky.
This guy is probably my most intriguing player to watch in the class. He's one of my favorites to watch. He's long and rangy. And he plays sideline to sideline so well. He's a true center fielder in our cover 3 scheme, single high safety. And if you watch him, he just tracks the ball. And look at this. He's a great athlete. Not too many guys can chase the guy down 15 yards ahead. And he plays running back. You can see right here, he plays wide receiver. He plays a little cornerback. He plays safety, but he's going to be our free safety in our single high scheme. And he plays the whole field so well, and he's a sure tackler.
All right. So I don't know. To me, like I said, Malcolm Jenkins, but Malcolm Jenkins is a safety at the NFL level, and he's possibly a Hall of Fame safety at the pro level. But I don't know why. I just see this guy just says, when I saw him first, I said Malcolm Jenkins.
You know, what's his name? Lonnie Johnson. You remember that name?
Yes, I do.
He got what's a 205-pound cornerback, 210 cornerback. You know what I mean? I'm not sure he's quite as quick as Lonnie Johnson is, but I feel like they're very similar builds and kind of same playing style. They're very upright, like if you watch them, and that's how they run. And not a bad thing at all. It's just that's their style, and I feel like they're very similar, and that they can. I think Lonnie could play safety in the NFL right now too, on top of corner like he's playing.
All right, well, that's fine with me. I think that's the fact you called him the most intriguing prospect for you in this this class.
He's probably one of my favorite commits in the class.
Well, okay. Well, I ain't gonna argue with you, man, because you've never steered me wrong before. As far as it's like, again, I bring back the Court Williams thing just because it's like nobody was talking about him. This is an offensive tackle as well. We needed another one. And we flipped him from Louisville, I believe. Zen Mikowski. I'm going to just hope to God I got his name right. Big dude, 6'6", 285. Obviously looking at him as offensive tackle. Was this a reach, do you think, or a desperate thing to get another offensive tackle, or is he just legitimately like a really good player?
a little bit of both. Um,
Appreciate the honesty, though.
I do think he's a good player, and so I mean, if you can see his rankings rose quite a bit in the last couple cycles.
Well, I think when Ohio State offers you, your rankings are going to go up a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, he's never played the offensive tackle. He was a tight end who kept growing and growing, and so he wasn't quite athletic enough to be a college tight end. You know what I mean? So you're not going to get that many looks, and then you put on 35 pounds that you're going to start. And I'm not saying he the whole way maintain his athletic ability from when he was a tight end, but he's still a pretty good athlete for 300 pounds, 290 pounds at 6'6". And so I think on top we needed bodies, but I think he was how late it was in the cycle. I think this was a pretty good find for us.
Do you see him as a diamond in the rough? Like eventually down the road, he somehow becomes our right tackle?
Yeah, I can see that. We've kind of mentioned he played tackle or guard for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure.
Tall guard.
What?
Really tall guard.
Yeah. I mean, hey, what did Michael Jordan play at? 6'7"?
That's true. Yep.
And Bowen played at his first 2 years were 6'7" as well, 6'8"?
And he was really good for the Bulls. So
yeah,
I had to do it, man. I'm sorry.
And so I think that I'm not sure they're sold on him being a left tackle, but I think he could play right tackle or guard for us. And I think that's going to be a big transition for him. If you watch, who was that? Reed Fragel, you know what I mean? He has the same type of path, and it's going to be tough on him. And he's learning a whole new position, which it's tough to do, especially offensive tackle. There's so many nuances that you have to do. And he's going to be not necessarily the biggest and strongest guy like he is in high school.
Well, I'm not finding Sam Hart, but give me a little bit on Sam Hart, the tight end from Colorado.
He's a good player. He's not flashy. He's not the sexy pick. You know what I mean? He's not the best athlete. He's about 6'4", 6'5", 230 pounds, 225 pounds. Yeah, he can kind of do it all. We can kind of move him out wide. He's not a bad blocker at all. So I think he does have to put on a little more weight to obviously be college ready. I mean, if you look at, Rucker was 235 pounds coming out of high school, and he still had a long way to go blocking wise.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously became what we needed him to be a blocker. But Sam Hart, look, we took Joey Royer, taking Sam Hart, taking a couple tight ends in the next class as well. Benji Gosnell and Bennett Christian.
They're lunch pail guys. You know what I mean? They're lunch pail and they work hard.
Yeah.
And they're good teammates. And if you see our tight end room, that's the most important thing, is being able to be well-rounded and not necessarily obviously Ruckert is an exception in the last couple of years because he's by far the best receiving tight end we've had. But all the guys, none of them have been special necessarily at one thing. And that's kind of who we want. We want guys that are good enough blockers that we can rely on. Because, we're first and foremost, we're a power run team. And that's who we're going to be. So if you're not getting on the field, you can't block, but he's still a good receiver.
Well, that works for me. Because again, we don't use them the way many people want us to use our tight ends. So it's almost like I think our good buddy Anthony Tyleik once said, "I don't really care who we recruit at tight end because we don't use them the way we like a Kyle Pitts at Florida. We're not going to have." So in Rucker we thought could be that, but we're not really using them that way. So I agree with you that I agree with Anthony that whatever we do at tight end, we do. I trust Kevin Wilson with that. So going on to one of our last two, Jalen Johnson, a 3-star safety out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We took him really early, and I know they love his athleticism. And we took him over the likes of AJ Kirk and things like that, guys who like legacy type players. Who Mike Doss being his brother, obviously. I think it's his brother, right? That's Mike Doss's brother.
Yeah, little brother.
Okay. Yeah. So what about Jalen Johnson? Does he even play safety? He's 205 now. Is he going to be a linebacker?
That's the big question, and depending on who you ask, they kind of. He tells them that he tells everyone he's a safety. Some of the coaches tell people when they ask him what he's a safety, but eventually, a lot of people feel that he's going to move down to the infamous bullet position that Johnny loves so much.
Oh man!
And I mean, that's kind of where I see him. I see him kind of playing the court. I mean, I feel like him and Court Williams are going to be very like doing the same repping and kind of doing the same type of work. I do think that he can. I mean, I think Court's going to stay at safety early on, and I feel like that's kind of where Johnson's going to be as well. I do think he's in the safety room. I think that you won't really notice the big weight gain for the next year and a half. You know what I mean? Your first year on the weight room,
Mm-hmm.
you start to notice it. But I think early on he is a safety.
Okay, so he's just a big, powerful safety, and obviously we took him early because we liked him. He's again one of like 6 defensive backs we've taken because we're trying to refill that room. We've seen a lack of depth this year, kind of bothering us a little bit. Last selection, I'm not going to show highlights of a kicker. I'm sorry, I'm not. Last selection in 2021 class so far, Jesse Mirko, an Australian kicker. I'm glad we got a kicker. I mean, you saw what Jordan did when he had a chance. Jordan Siebert did when he had a chance, and he missed the first one. Not that he say he won't be good, but you just never know college kickers after all. And Blake Heibel, I mean, he's been good, but with the groin injury this year, he's been a little shaky. And I think he's done after this year too. Heibel is, so maybe he comes back. I don't know. The kickers maybe, but what have you seen this guy kick? Is he any good, JC Mirko? Or
Yeah, he's going to be our starting punter next year.
Oh, he's a punter. Okay. I thought he was a place kicker.
No, he's a punter. Yeah, he's going to play. I think he's going to start next year. He's 23 already, 24.
Oh, wow. We've done well with older punters. So.
Yeah, and I mean he comes from the same place as what's the punter's name? I can't think of it. Cam Johnson.
Okay.
As him over in Australia, and he was one that he put him on to us, and Matt Barnes did a heck of a job finding this guy. There's not a lot of film on him, but he was a professional rugby player.
Mm-hmm.
And, Cam Johnson was a good athlete too, for being a punter. And that's
Is he going to do that sideways punt where he kicks it from the side of his foot, basically?
There's not a lot of film on him punting other than just the traditional, the traditional drop back punt. But I think that all those guys do learn that way, kicking the rugby ball,
Mm-hmm.
But I feel he blew up on the scene overseas, and he came from nowhere. I'm literally nowhere, just doing a few camps and stuff like that over there, to being one of the most talked about punters in their organization, Pro Kick.
I'm going to put up Steve's comment here. Buckers, BIA, Buckeye punters. I'll tell you, Chrisman is when he gets on the Michigan State football field. He's a complete field flipper.
Game.
Yeah, and I remember if we go way back, talk to Andy Groom, who could, we're back in our side of our own 10. He'll just flip the field somehow, kick it 80 yards. So just to quickly sum up the class, we've already been here an hour. Obviously, I was playing on 25 minutes. Look what happened. Quickly sum up the class. Number 2 ranked in the country. Probably not going to catch Bama. Let's just be honest, and that's fine. For people who worry about that kind of crap, to me is like, okay, if we're in the top 5, we're competitive nationally. Because we're recruiting at an elite level if you're in the top 5 every year. And isn't this Ryan Day's first full class of 2020? Or was that 19?
This would be. I think this is his second full class, right?
Was 19 his first full class?
No, 20.
I'm still in 2020s. Early signing periods are screwing with me. Yeah, you got a point there. Julian Fleming class, and yeah, okay. Wow, completely spaced a little bit on that. Well, those first two class. What were we ranked last year? 2 as well.
Was it 2?
Can't remember off the top of my head, but
top 5.
It was top 5. Yeah, so he's going to have 2 top 5 classes in a row. So Ryan Day, for people who say that, wait until he gets his own players. The Michigan fans like to use that excuse for everything. When Harbaugh, wait till he gets his own players. Year 6 and he stinks. Well, Ryan Day, wait till he has to get his own players. Well, we're recruiting on top 5 level, top 2, 3 level. What are you talking about? I think we were top 2, top 3 last year. Anyway, I just can't remember off the top of my head. But again, another amazing class. 2022 is already kicking off incredibly. So obviously Ryan Day has kept that Urban Meyer level of recruiting. Yeah,
and he's the offensive skill position. He's taken that to another level recently. And if you look at our skill position, we upgraded almost the last 2 classes from what we had the previous 2. We upgraded almost every single skill position.
So real quick, we got one guy we're chasing right now, probably a couple. I have a feeling a surprise name will come up. Hey, Kitty, my cat just came in here. Let me ask you. Obviously, it's JT Tuimoloau. I can't say his name 100% correct, but the guy at Washington, defensive end, number 4 player in the country, or number 3 player in the country. What are our chances with him? I actually feel like with Emeka here and with G. Scott working on him, I just feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, same here.
Do you feel pretty confident about it?
Yeah, I'm obviously in recruiting, especially if someone's so far away, it's never a lock. But I feel very good about landing him.
So it probably, I would say we're at least land 2 to 3 more. I just don't know for sure who those next 2 besides JT are. I just can't, unless we're going to stick with 22. I mean, I maybe not. Maybe another offensive tackle out of nowhere.
I think him, and I mean, I think we're going to swing the bat as hard as we can on Rajon Davis. I feel like that's the big name that
probably keep trying on Tristan Lay until he just basically shuts us out, right?
Pretty much, isn't that what he did do?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, that's a long shot, as Berm just said. But
yeah,
anyway,
Davis, the guy that we're really swinging hard at now, that we know that. I mean, we've been focusing on JT for so long. Everyone knows about that, but Davis, as a lot of people have said, that he's not going to be. They don't think he's signing with LSU, and he's the best linebacker out there that we're still recruiting. And if he has no problem going far away from home, from Cali, then I think we'll land him.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. Hopefully we can. It's again, USC is probably gonna be in the lead for that if he decommits. But anyway, Dylan, thanks for coming on, man. At Dylan Freeman VP, if you want to catch him on Twitter. Dylan, again, thanks as always. Had a blast doing this. Actually, it will not be nearly this long on February when that signing day comes. So anyway, guys, appreciate you tuning in. Again, at Dylan Freeman VP, if you want to check him out on Twitter. As always, goodbye, God bless, and go Bucks.